the editor. The editor. We always like to remind you that each week the Voice and Viewpoint is San Diego's oldest and only African American publication. We basically cover 89 zip codes, 17 cities, unincorporated areas, 39 communities of San Diego County. Our slogan is "A people without a voice cannot be heard." And based on that, we invite your voice, your input, your comments. As I and Dr. Leonard Thompson III, my co-host here, we do our open mic approach to being with you another week. So we have a lot to talk about, and we want to thank you for joining us. If you have a question or a comment, you may reach us at 858-251-6111, or you may go to godradio1.com to reach us on the internet. So again, thank you for being with us. Dr. Thompson.
Well, I tell you, it is a very busy time in the world. So much is going on. I think we should just start with some of the world news, and let's just go straight to Syria. And what's your thoughts about the fall of that regime?
Well, I think that I'm glad it's finally happened. You know, it started back in 2011 with the Arab Spring, and a lot has taken place in those 11 countries over there that thought that that issue and that youthful uprising was going to have a lasting revolutionary effect, which it did not, even though some people were deposed. And so this guy that was just kicked out, he has been a true monster. I know he's taken refuge in Russia. He at one point used chemical weapons against women and children and whole communities. But a new culprit has emerged in the midst of this crisis, and Israel is turning out to be quite an entity. They're pushing to take Golan Heights, to take what they consider key strategic places along the border with this collapse, which has resulted in, Iran and Russia pull their people back because Russia has got its own manpower shortages, and they're using troops from North Korea to help fight the Ukraine. About 10,000 North Koreans, I believe, have been exported to do battle there. And so in the past 72 hours, I would think that Israel has done over 300 bombing raids into Syria. They said that they're doing it just to keep the wrong elements like Hamas in them from gaining control. But each time something happens, Israel uses it as an opportunity to take back land.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that an arrest warrant has already been issued for Netanyahu by the International Criminal Court in terms of genocide and acts against humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this is important to us because we're about to get a new president who does not share our sense of survival and global partnerships. His friendships with people like North Korea's president and Putin really give us great concern. And then when you look at who he's appointed for his national intelligence director, a woman who at one point even went so far as to Syria to meet secretly with Assad, we have some serious issues in front of us. So this week I've done an editorial that suggests how we might prepare to deal with it. And my title is that there's a need for a counter Project 2025 plan. And I explain how that can be done. So there's a lot there internationally, Dr. Thompson. You've got followers internationally. I know we have at least 90 countries that we've counted up that follow the Voice and Viewpoint online. 17 of those are African nations with people there. So we're not just talking to ourselves as we sit here. We are really reaching the world.
You know, one of the things that really greatly concerns me, more, not even, Donald Trump is president-elect. He will go into office. I think what really concerns me is, how he can pardon any of the insurrection people of January 6th, especially the ones that caused people to die, those that were violent, those that tore up the Capitol, things of that nature. I'm still trying to understand how he can pardon them as prisoners of war when we were not at war. It was his personal war, but we were not at war.
Well, you see, the one thing that most people make the mistake when they're dealing with Donald Trump is they transfer their own sense of values and logic, and you can't do that because that's not a logical person. He made the statement today after he had announced his FBI choice, and the guy that's there is stepping down. And he's talking about how he was a very bad person because he invaded his home. Well, yeah, he invaded his home because you had stuff you have no business having there. And so he's on a revenge kick. And, all things happen for a reason. And I believe that a lot of the people that voted for Trump are going to live to regret the vote. They're going to find out that working with him is like working with the devil. You see movies where the devil has all of his worshipers and they do stuff to help him get resurrected. And first thing he does when they try to worship him is he kills them and goes on to the next thing. So he's going to kill off those that he can. And it's going to be a very dangerous time for us because Hesed, that character who should not even be considered for Secretary of Defense, seems to be gaining momentum on the Hill. And it suggested that Trump could lose as many as 3 Senate votes and still get him confirmed. So it's dangerous. If you consider a position that we just had a 4-star general, 30-year veteran in, when you consider the people who have been secretaries of defense and who've headed the CIA in terms of our intelligence community, and now we've reduced all of this to radio talk show cast of characters from television, we were in trouble.
Yeah, and I think more than anything else is that there's a lot of things that are just not rational. And I'm really concerned with the lawmakers that are kind of like sitting back thinking that, oh, well, it's going to happen anyway, so we just got to ride the tide. Instead of saying we have to aggressively fight this, aggressively do certain things to make sure that we don't lose total control of our country during this time. Now, let me ask the question, and people have asked this question. Can Donald Trump run again?
No, not after this time. There's only a 2-term. Constitutionally, there's only 2 terms. I think Roosevelt was the only person that ever did 3 terms before they changed the law. And while he could, his terms were not consecutive, there's still a limit to 2 terms. But remember, Donald Trump has said that the people will never have to vote again. So he intends to try to upend the whole democratic process to make himself dictator and king. You cannot imagine him giving up power in 4 years. Okay, and it's a question. I mean, he's already put his daughter or his daughter-in-law in charge of the Republican National Committee, and he's got family members and friends every place. And one of the reasons he's stacking the cabinet the way he is because that's his safeguard against the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment allows the vice president and members of the cabinet to do a letter and to forward it to the speaker and the secretary to declare the president disabled and to replace him. So Trump is trying to hedge his bets all the way around. And I really believe, and people better wake up and pay attention, that I think J.D. Vance is a greater threat than Donald Trump.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I also believe that Elon Musk is a great terror to us too. A lot of people don't know he's originally from South Africa. The whole apartheid and everything else that nature, and that spirit is still with him. And when I saw him just recently gallivanting throughout the Capitol with his son on his shoulders, I said, "Wow, we're down to that. That bring your kid to work, and the kid is hearing everything. The kid is spectating, almost like he was a mini-me. The mini-me that was a grown man, but he was on the shoulders of people because he was small."
Well, Elon Musk is going to play out. There's no way he can last long term. You're going to have a clash of egos there, number one. He's got so many government contracts, he's going to be in conflict. And I think Donald Trump is going to discover that controlling inspector generals and all of the people that are in places, that it's not going to be as easy as he thinks. So I think he's headed for some rough times. I also noticed this week that the district attorney in New York and the attorney general both have refused to dismiss their cases against him.
Hmm.
So that means that while they cannot go after him while he's president, that when he steps out of office, I think he'll be facing those 34 convictions, and he'll be facing all the other drama that's been put on hold so he could be presidential.
Yeah, and which is really a sad state of affairs in America that we have a convicted felon that cannot be prosecuted. Why? Because he is president and he's president elect. People think that the economy is doing better and everything else of that nature, forgetting that he's not the president yet. So the economy's growth and things of that nature is under the current president.
Well, the reports that are coming out in the last few hours, economy is not all that great in terms of what was reported before. Inflation is creeping up to 3%. Bird flu is having its impact on the birds, on the price of food because eggs are up and tremendously over 3% over a year ago. And two Western judges just killed the merger that was supposed to take place between Kroger and Albertson. And so that's not going to happen, which is a good thing because it would have put a lot of people out of jobs. It would have created a food monopoly, and it's good. And once the one judge in Washington State did a permanent injunction against it, then Kroger pulled out of the partnership. One of them pulled out because said the other had not successfully done their due diligence and the deal was dead. So
Wow.
that's a small victory for the people because we didn't need that additional merger, not yet. Because if you read the Bible and you understand Revelation, one of the things that helps the Antichrist when he gets in power is consolidation has taken place on such a massive scale that there are not a lot of little things to be worried about. Everything is under a big umbrella, and big umbrellas are easier to move than a lot of little pieces.
Well, one of the things that that I've noticed is that they have made a big deal about cryptocurrency and that they're going to focusing on more of the cryptocurrency. Thus, more and more people are going to lose their money.
Well, they should, and I can't remember exactly where it is, but uh, I just can't wrap my head around the idea of embracing cryptocurrency when the Constitution, at some point, there's specific reference in our statutes against using competing currency. The currency that we have has been declared our currency, and I can't remember if it was just with the Federal Reserve because the Federal Reserve was not constitutionally created. The Federal Reserve was created separately outside of the Constitution and given powers that it didn't have. So a lot of things people don't understand because they don't read as they used to and should. So many people are just on social media that they're missing a lot of the small print. And those little small print items are going to be increasingly important.
Yeah, and and the thing about it is that so many people have been hoodwinked by cryptocurrency. Some have done extremely well, but some have lost their shirts because they've lost their passwords or people robbed them, and so many cryptocurrency accounts are being looted and people are losing millions and millions of dollars. And for them to say this is the wave of the future, everything that is out there is just not good. And like I said, I don't know about you, but imaginary money just does not work for me.
Well, I don't deal with imaginary money. Everything is trying to give you, it's just like people selling gold and silver and talking about hedging your bets. I mean, that's the kind of activity that took place in the Jewish community in Germany in pre-World War II and during World War II because people got out with their wealth and a lot of their wealth was in gold. And if you look at some of the documentary clips, not only that, but a lot of the people who were killed, and among the 6 million, they had gold in their teeth. And the Germans took the gold out of their teeth and had stacks of it
Wow.
after they had killed people.
Wow.
Just like they took and made lampshades out of their skins. So, the past is doomed to repeat itself. That's one of the reasons additional guillotines are being made. You know, if a few years ago, the Museum of Man here in San Diego had an exhibit in terms of mankind, and guillotines were a part of the exhibit. And if you notice, with the Islamic fractions that we've dealt with in the past 20 years, a lot of their activities have resulted in beheading people. And beheading is a part of what is predicted in Bible prophecy that will be returned in end times. And so it gives you some idea of who is we're going to be up against and what's going to be going on. And so these things are very serious. I guess the good news is that some of us won't be here for it, but it's still a serious time if you have children and grandchildren and loved ones.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that I will share with people consistently is that this is going to be a time, just like the pandemic was a time for pausing to really get our life right with God and to get ourselves back into right standing with the Lord and focus on Him. You know, now things have to go into action, and so we're no longer at a preparation state. We're at an action state, and we have to realize that we cannot be quiet. It says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and high places. And we know that that is happening right now, and we have to just be more vigilant. You know, we're going to be under attack like never before because there are some people that have lost the Savior. They're the salt, but they've lost the Savior. And so you have what I call production churches and churches that do lots of numbers but don't do any salvation modes. They do feel good stuff, and we have to get past the feel good stuff and basically prepare people to live holy.
Well, this is true, Dr. Thompson. And so many times we're not paying attention to the impact of things in the global religious community that have impacts for us. You know, Pope Francis has just increased the number of cardinals in the College of Cardinals to, I think it's like 280 some or whatever. And that's the group that selects the Pope whenever one Pope dies. And so, but there's a certain number of them when they reach the age of 80, they can no longer vote. And so they're kind of excluded. And so he's been not only putting new people there, but he's been giving new responsibilities and roles and rules in terms of what can take place. And so we need to be eternally vigilant, you know? I always come back to Thomas Jefferson's statement that eternal vigilance is the price of freedom, and that we have to pay very close attention to what's going on around us.
So Notre Dame has been rebuilt, and people want to go see it and visit it. Why was that so important to American people that they spent so much money securing it? Joe Biden, Donald Trump, world leaders all came there. Was it to stand in good faith with the French people? I didn't really get that.
Well, I think that all of these people showed up because of the importance of Notre Dame to the French people and the historical significance of it, the way it was destroyed in terms of the fire. It wasn't arson or espionage in terms of what happened, and the fact that that so much came together. I forget how much it cost to rebuild it and to make it even better than it was, the artisans and the whole bit. So it was like a fellowship thing that brought the people of the world together. It would be the equivalent of something happening to the Washington Cathedral, and people coming here to be present in terms of support and friendship with us for the restoration and the reopening of it.
Yeah, one of the things that I did watch a documentary on how they rebuilt it and how they went around to different parts of the country, the French country, and how they had to hand select the oaks and the things.
Oh yeah,
It was very meticulous. And then they have it where they actually now have what they call a mister, or basically a sprinkler system now in the church.
yes,
So that that'll never happen again. But they also have it where parts of it will shut off. if there's fire to protect other parts.
And they rewired the entire church and
Yeah.
they put lighting in it that wasn't there beforehand. And it's also significant because most of those cathedrals that are in Europe that were built during that whole religious fervor are really just monuments now.
Yeah.
They don't have many people in them. There are issues. I thought it was significant that even the organ that they put there, the organist was there to work and play because uh, repairing those organs has become difficult. Finding people who can play them has become even more difficult. They're becoming extinct. They had some of that issue in the Washington Cathedral some years ago, and they had some of the stones that were coming loose, and they had to search all through Italy and that area over there because so much marble came out of Italy in terms of what the sculptures were doing, finding as much as they could. So it was a significant event, and I thought it was good that we were a part of it.
Yes, we're seeing again more in custody deaths. We're up to, I think, 16, 17 this year alone. And it doesn't seem like anything is being done. Sheriff Martinez, it's the same thing from what we saw before her time, and it seems like it's continuing on. And it just seems like they're still doing the same thing. And from what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong, but what I understand is that the guards are still not being checked and everything as they come in. So how the contraband is getting in only one way. You cannot say that prisoners are bringing it in because they have to get it in. They locked up.
Yeah, well, let's look at what the Board of Supervisors just did. They tried to expand the CLERB and their law enforcement group there. They tried to put some demands on the sheriff with the resolution that was passed. And, Martinez came back with a very powerful statement that she issued. And what she said, in effect, is the Board of Supervisors have no control over the Sheriff's Department. They don't have any control over the jails, that the jails are under the exclusive purview of the sheriff, and that the board did not understand either federal statute or the state constitution in terms of trying to issue any kind of statements, and that she's going to do what she wants in terms of controlling it. Now, the significance of that is that both the sheriff and the district attorney, who normally had 4-year terms, 2 years ago, 2 additional years were added to their term so that their election would come up not in an off election year, but in an election year where we had, major activity. So that gets to be important. And what we see as a result of what took place is that the only impact the board has over the sheriff department is budgetary. And so that we had on this program last month sometime, I believe it was, Mr. Andrew Strong, who is a deputy administrative officer over public safety, and he's a liaison with the sheriff's department. But that liaison action from his office extends to both the sheriff and the DA, but they're only accountable, the only tie to the county is the budget, and the county has to put the money out for both things. So it's going to be interesting to see, do we have a strong board of supervisors that's taking a position? Bill Gore stepped down when the Attorney General's statements was issued, how San Diego County had the highest number of in-custody deaths in the state. People are still dying in jail, which means they're not being treated appropriately. And even that recent payout that we saw for the in-custody death of that young lady in the civil suit, those funds were paid by the county. They weren't paid out of the sheriff's budget. And so somebody's going to have to look at how do we pull the reins in, and what do we do to address the issue.
And one of the things that we have to just continue to know that we're going to have to monitor it, because it's not going to change. And people think that just because you go to jail or you're locked up that it shouldn't be a big deal, but it is a big deal, especially when people are being incarcerated for a short period of time and they're not even being fully processed before we see that they are passing away.
Yeah, because we have his people die who were in jail awaiting trial. We have people in jail who can't afford bail, and we were one of the first counties to deal with this whole no bail concept in terms of the belief that people who can't afford bail are being unduly held. So there are a lot of issues there. Our biggest problem is that most people don't pay attention to the judicial elements of this government until they find themselves or their family members involved in the system. And the reality is, more of us have to be like a Tasha Williamson and pay attention and take the position that what happens to everyone affects us because it could be us as well.
Yeah, and one of the things about it is that it is going to require us to continue to be involved, be involved, be involved. Locally, we're looking at the budget, and the budget. Well, let's go locally to the swearing in of the new continuing sitting mayor and several of the council members just this past Tuesday, and then Elo Rivera was put in as the council president.
No, Joe LaCabo.
Oh, okay. I thought that they said he got okay.
No, I think it's LaCabo,
Okay.
if I got it right, that went in as the new president of the city council.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of discussion. He had comments about Proposition E that didn't give us that 1% sales tax. I think that the city is guilty because they didn't lobby the public for support of the sales tax.
Yeah.
I didn't see any really hard campaigning to get the tax passed. There was just an assumption that people were going to add to their own deficit by doing that 1 cent, and it didn't happen, which is very significant. We had no new characters go down because everybody who was running got reelected, from the mayor to the members of the board to the city council to members of the board of supervisors. No new people.
Yeah, and I stand corrected again. It is Joe LaCava agreeing with you that was elected. I guess on the sound bites and the news bites I was watching this morning, I was watching Elo Rivera actually making a speech, and I thought that they had reelected him. But
No.
again, thank you, listeners, for saying no. It is Joe LaCava. So we will have to see how Joe runs the city council, and if we can get more things done. I will agree with you. Proposition E was not well promoted. It was not well explained. It was not well lobbied. And they waited to the very last minute thinking that it was just going to be ushered in. And the reality is simply this. I could care less that, in Chula Vista, their sales tax is higher than ours. In National City, their sales tax are higher than ours. People are going to come to our city because our tax
They've
are
been
less.
doing it for years.
Exactly.
Ever since the tax went up in National City and Chula Vista, people that drive that little extra distance to avoid their sales tax in terms of what they're buying.
Yeah.
And so this is a very important issue that we're talking about here.
Yeah, and they're trying to raise money, and they're going to have to make big cuts. My concern is, I am a homeowner in San Diego City proper, and I still don't want to pay for my garbage. Now, for everybody else that got to pay for your garbage, I want to pray for you, but I still think that all my life I've lived in the city and have not had to pay for my garbage. And at this age and this time of my life, I don't think I should have to pay. I think I should be grandfathered in because I've been doing it all my life.
Well, see, and my position is just the opposite, because I've lived in the county until recently, coming into the city. I've always paid for garbage. Homeowner in the county, always paid for garbage. As a matter of fact, when I was in Hamul and I had horses, I had dual services because I had a trash service, and then I also had a separate a service container for horse manure, which I felt was important to keep the neighbors used to get on me about, why you do that when that's just country smells. And I just thought it was just good hygiene to keep the place clean,
Yeah,
So
that was the poop ordinance.
So I mean, we always paid. That's the big thing. So it's just kind of chuckle when I hear people here talking about, oh my God, we got to stop paying for trash and stuff like.
Yeah.
And
the reason why is because I would have been okay if they would have let us keep our own trash cans. You know what I'm saying? But they have designed those trash cans to break very easily.
Of
You know what I'm
course.
saying? I literally got a brand new trash can that I had to pay full price for, and by the time 2 months later, the lid was already cracked.
Oh yes.
Because the fact is that one, they're not made for that swing and
And
push
they
of the
know
garbage.
how long it's going to last in
Yeah.
terms of the way they put it together.
And so my whole thing is that they already getting paid when we got to buy those trash cans. So, you
Well,
know,
the bigger issue to me is uh, all of you city residents who are homeowners paying should be looking at how much money was spent with the consultant to try to determine what your rate should be.
hmm
They spent, I thought it was 2 or 300 million dollars with a consultant to study how much to charge. That money could have gone to pay and kept the thing free and
exactly.
kept the money in now the city has a $200 million deficit.
hmm
The IBA, the independent budget analyst, has put out a report on this whole situation. I've always felt that the solution in budgeting, and I don't see it happening, but when I had to handle the budget for the school district in my years back in D.C. in office, uh, I threw the school budget out and created a zero-based budget approach, which meant that when you have zero-based budgeting, there is no leftover money at the end of the year.
hmm
You either spend it or you lose it, and you start from scratch each year building, and that eliminates the waste. Now, to show you how significant this is, I remember during Schwarzenegger's term as governor, and we were going through a budget crisis, and I think it was Inspector General. One of the people found $12 million that had been tucked away in a parks budget, in a
hmm
state parks budget that was just sitting there. And so people be playing, coin shuffling with the
hmm
dollars. And this is going to get Trump in trouble
hmm
because at the end of the day, the Constitution says all of the money issues come from the Congress.
hmm
And right now, after all these crazy people, he's down to only a one vote majority over the Democrats taking over.
hmm
So we just got homework to do, Dr. Thompson. If we do our homework, the system is counting on us looking at stuff and not getting too exercised and letting it go.
hmm
School system has deficits,
hmm
and I mean the budget deficits all over it. Are we going to lay people off?
Yeah, well, I would imagine that Unified is going to do a golden handshake to try to get the
Yeah.
heavy lifters or the long termers out so that they can hire people at a cheaper rate. And so I can imagine a golden handshake is going to be offered this year. The sad thing about it is that they're going to pay a royalty for the staff food that they did with their superintendent, and they will wind up paying probably several $1 million to get themselves out of this. Because eventually they were going to probably say that it was premeditated and they knew that there was an issue long before they made him superintendent. But that's neither here nor there. What I will say is simply this: most districts will settle out of court versus going to court because it costs them so much money to go to court with all the high-priced lawyers that they feel like they basically make a judgment call. They'll say, okay, if we go to court, it's going to take so long, and this is how much we're going to have to pay for it. If we settle for this, we're gonna still lose money, but we won't lose as much if we go to court. And then if we go to court and lose, then it's on double. So they're gonna cut their losses in most cases, and we're seeing that consistently. Mind you, that hopefully they'll be able to when they do their forensic audit to literally prosecute Cindy Martin for leaving over 184 cases open as she left our district and everything like that. Hopefully, they can come back and hold her responsibility
Well,
for
they're
her
not.
negligence.
They're not going to do that. They're not
Yeah,
going to prosecute her.
yeah.
She's gonna walk with it. They also know that the union agreements require, I believe, is in by April or May. No,
I think
March.
it's March 15th.
It's March 15th. They're going to have to send out all of those pink slips,
hmm
several hundred of them,
hmm
and then by June, after they do the golden handshake, they will see how many they can retract. But the education, that's where the cost is and the personnel.
Hmm.
And all school districts want to get rid of these senior people because they can hire two people for the price of one senior person
Hmm.
in terms of trying to meet their numbers because school districts are 95 to 97% labor intensive in
Yeah.
terms of the people that have to work with kids.
Yes, and I think that they're going to make some really hard decisions. But I've been very vocal about the forensic audit. It was called for, and I said that if there is a forensic audit, and if you've approved it, then it should go all the way back to Cindy Martin. I was just notified that they have approved the forensic audit, and it will go all the way back to the days of Cindy Martin. And I said, now we're talking about it, and I want to see it. I will look at that report because as a person that used to be a problem solver, I know where a lot of the bodies are buried, and if they don't do the forensic audit right, then we're going to go back and relook at that. Yes.
Okay,
And,
well,
and,
it's
and I
going
think that is important because where the district is right now is not all on the past superintendent. Where the district is right now is that you have frivolous spending and haphazard guidance and leadership that thought that they were going to get out, and when they thought that Hillary Rodham Clinton was going to win, so they spent crazy thinking that I'm out of here, and it didn't work that way. So they had to stay until Biden got in office, and they still had to make the deal because it was made before.
Well, I just don't think anything's going to come of what Cindy Martin did. She's going to walk free. She might get a little bit of bad publicity, but they're gonna put the blame on everybody else. The important thing is, I think people are so busy trying to survive right now, and some of the things that the vice president talked about, like child care,
Hmm.
and we see that child care is up nationwide. You're running an average of $25,000 a year, and then it's not feasible for people to work and just be working to pay for child care.
Hmm.
And yet this country has resisted doing what it could for child care in terms of putting assistance there,
Hmm.
where other countries have done so. And we got a little bit of reprieve during the pandemic. There was some help and money put out there, but a lot of that went away when the pandemic went away. And so we got people back again, hardships. And my heart goes out to young families
Hmm.
where, two parties got to work and one is really just working to pay for child care.
Yeah, and so many families are choosing not to have children because of the cost of raising children, the cost of caring for children. They're saying that it's not feasible for them to bring a child into this world. Whereas we have other communities that say we're going to have as many babies as we can, and we're going to continue to populate the city until we have more ability to maneuver. Now, let me ask you this question, Dr. Warren. This is a legal question. I want you to put on your legal hat. I'm not asking you for legal advice. This is your legal hat. There was a statement made by President-elect Trump that said, well, if you're illegal and you're with family members that are in the United States, we won't separate you. We'll just deport everybody. Can you deport a legalized citizen?
Well, that statement has to be put in context. It was Holman who is going to be the border czar that's going to handle supposedly this massive deportation program. The journalist asked him in an interview about the separation of families because so many kids are still, over 1,500 of them, still have not been put back to their families. They can't find them. And there's evidence that the separation without control was intentional. And all of this was to frighten people in terms of coming into the country. And so when the issue was raised, his response was, we don't have to separate the families. We can just deport the whole families. Those who are born in this country have a citizenship right.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents are not likely to take the kids. They're going to try to leave them with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The dreamers are concerned right now. And it's kind of interesting because the Latino vote went for Trump, and now they're going to pay for it, okay, because 95% of the people that you talk about deporting are Latino people.
Well, let me say this, and the reason why I say because Trump doubled down on it on an interview where he said that talked about deportation of the whole family, but what he also doubled down was saying that the ability to, if you're born here, you're a naturalized citizen. He's basically trying to get rid of that, saying that if you come over here and you're not a citizen, but you have a baby here, does not automatically mean that they're a citizen. So they're trying to get rid of that.
They
As
can't.
yeah,
That's constitutionally protected in terms of being born here. They've tried that before. They even talked about, they use drastic example. They say that some of these women are coming, they're pregnant, and that they get to the border, and when they get ready to deliver, they try to make sure that the lower half of their torso is in the U.S., even if the top half is in Mexico. So if the baby comes out in the U.S., then the baby is a citizen, and therefore we need to start changing the law. Well, it was just a discussion, but it was never done, and it's not likely to be done because we have all kinds of citizenship agreement. I mean, many times people who are, well, I'll give you an example, persons who are stationed overseas and their children, like we have a friend who was born in Italy, I believe, because her parents were in the military at the time. Well, she's still a U.S. citizen, and there's a question as to, like with Germany, can she have dual citizenship? Some places will allow dual citizenship,
yeah,
so that you can be both a citizen of the U.S. and say a citizen of Germany or another country. Other countries just want people when they become naturalized to give up their citizenship to other countries, and so it gets to be a whole different issue.
yeah. And so my thing is that you know I believe that the Constitution will go under tremendous attack during this presidency. I believe that he has stacked the deck in the Supreme Court to try to push things through, and I believe that they're trying to stack the deck in the Congress and in the Senate to push these constitutional changes through.
Well, but they can't just do them in the House and the Senate because when you start amending the Constitution, you still have to get a two-thirds ratification from among the states, and those kind of changes take time. If you go back and look at things like statehood for Hawaii or Alaska, it didn't happen with just one single vote. It took those states time to meet and get it on the agenda to agree, and so that's going to be part of the process. It's not going to be as easy said. A lot of the things that Trump said, I believe two things. I still believe very strongly that the office does shape the man as much as the man tries to shape the office. And I believe that people, when they get in this office, especially Trump for this second term, they, like the pharaohs of Egypt, they become concerned with their legacy. And what is their legacy going to be? Right now, he's drinking the Kool-Aid and others are drinking it, that the legacy is going to be to change America and to make it look like Donald Trump. I don't think that that's going to succeed. I think we're going to be weakened by this administration, but I think that there's going to be pushback. Just like I see pushback coming in the Senate with these people, and just like I looked at how he selected three people from the Congress when he only had a five-member majority, and now, though unlike the Senate, the governor can appoint a replacement if a Senate vacancy occurs. In the Congress, there has to be a special election, and so the question is, how fast can some of these places hold a special election? People have to give up their jobs to be candidates, and what's going to happen going forward? And I think we have to be careful how much attention we give to this because we got to keep our eye on the local ball. We got to keep our eye on our jobs, the battle that we got here over rents that are outrageous in San Diego County when 49% of our citizens are renters. When we just did a story on the digital divide, and we've looked at the state, and we still have approximately 50% of this state that's not on the internet, that doesn't have Wi-Fi. We had Cox giving some supplemental payments to help in terms of schools and stuff during the pandemic. So how do we decide that we're going to put everything that pertains to government on the internet when 50% of the people have no access?
Yeah.
So these are the things we got to be looking at. We can have one eye on Trump, but we better pay attention of what's being done locally.
Yeah, and so many things that are being slid through the internet, and people really are not knowing. I had a conversation today about the Treasury Department requiring everybody to report in if
It's
they
been
have
put on hold.
yeah, oh, it has been put on hold.
It's
Let's
been
talk
put on
about that.
hold. Yeah, the Treasury Department was asking that every business had to file ownership papers, and the way I read it, they were speaking specifically to S corporations and LLCs. And S corporations are important because so many people who have an S corporation have their personal income tied to the S corporation structure as opposed to a Schedule C. Now, I've always been a Schedule C corporation, which is a for-profit entity that's separate and is different. And so I pay all the necessary taxes as a Schedule C. And when I've been an employee, then I paid taxes as an employee. And so this thing has been found. There's questions have been raised about the constitutionality of trying to do what they are proposing, and the whole thing has been frozen. I know there was a webinar yesterday that dealt with it
Okay.
as of yesterday. So, but we still did it. We still filled out the paperwork, even though I know it didn't apply to us, because even the penalty was ridiculous, $500 a day.
Yeah.
That's that violates the constitutional requirement of cruel and unusual. You just can't do things that are so egregious that they hurt people and just say, well, this is the law, we got a right to do it.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I paid very close attention is that it was this really harsh, and we did the same thing. We filled out all the paperwork just to be on the safe side because they were putting panic. And I was talking to someone today, and I said, I know what you think, but it's better for you to fill it out and be safe than to not fill it out and start seeing those.
Oh yeah, you don't want to not fill out anything they ask for because then you're in a whole different ball game.
So let's move here to San Diego. Let's talk about what's coming up with the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint. What's getting ready to come out in the newspaper this week, as well as the upcoming events.
Well, we are moving into a very interesting period. Starting this weekend, we'll be moving into an accelerated, what I call, Christmas agenda. We've got things happening, like we have the Black Nativity again this weekend, which we went to, and I thought it was well done, a good event. We have the Urban League dinner tomorrow evening. We have the George Stevens Sr. Program Friday from 12 to 2. We have Blue Heart Foundation Saturday morning from 8 to 12 at the Liberty Station Conference Center. And then we move into next week. We have our Christmas programs where we have a giveaway for toys. This past Saturday, the San Diego and Imperial Valley Labor Council did a tremendous toy giveaway at the United Labor Center in Mission Valley. 350 some toys and food distribution elements were available, 100 and some here, and this Saturday they're going to be a continuation in Imperial Valley itself, Imperial County, there for another about 200 families. So they gave toys according to the ages of kids. Then they gave food, they gave turkeys, they gave all kinds of stuff. It was done by the workers. It was done by people who have taken money out of their paychecks and put it into a fund to make this available. There were a couple of hundred volunteers there working. The spirit was high, and people were pleased. They had designated times in terms of coming through. So it went very well. Next week, we'll see a continuation of things taking place. Even this Saturday morning, for instance, at the same time that we have the Blue Heart Foundation, we also have the Reefs Across America program at Greenwood Greenwood Memorial Cemetery. And that's a place where people have donated dollars to buy wreaths. And the concept is to put a wreath on the grave of each veteran that's there. And to help with that, our young people from high school ROTC in full uniform are brought in, and they help with the placement and the distribution of those wreaths. And that whole program starts at 8 o'clock. It goes for a couple of hours.
And then we also have bike with the fire chief this Saturday also from
Okay.
8 to I think 12 also. So there's so much that is happening in the city of San Diego. And during the Christmas time and the holiday seasons, I know that there's so much happening around your city. The encouragement I want to give each and every one of you that are listening to get involved. Get involved, help out, volunteer, be a part of the solution and not just a part of the problem. We can talk about a lot of things, but the bottom line, until we're ready to get involved and put some what they call sweat equity in it, then it's very hard for anyone to take us or take you serious until you're ready to do the work.
Well, and speaking of events, as I'm thinking all of these things that come into mind, they got cookies with Santa at different locations. Chula Vista has a major Christmas parade. I believe it's Friday. I think they already had Mother Goose
Yes.
in El Cajon, which is always an annual thing, and it's a very big event that takes place. And there will be the parade of lights. The boats parades will be taking place. We have Christmas nights going in Balboa Park,
Yeah, that was last week.
and but it's going to continue.
Yeah.
But there's a big controversy over Ace Parking Company and what they're charging people to park.
Well, come on, Dr. Warren. When did it cost $45 to park? I mean, and why does that even make sense?
Well, it doesn't make sense, but the irony of it is that Ace has done that for everything that it has under contract in San Diego. When an event takes place, just like if you went to a play down at Civic Center, you're going to pay $30, $20, or $30 to park. And many times when City Hall is holding special events, the rates go up. I often question how does one company have such a monopoly on all the parking, it appears, in San Diego. And nobody seems to ever raise any questions about any of it.
And what I think is happening is that they don't own all the lots. They're leasing the lots from
They
the
lease them
owners.
from the city.
Yeah.
They lease them from the city, and I don't know what they pay in relationship to what they make. And maybe that's something the independent budget analyst needs to look at
Yeah.
while we're talking about this budget, because I noticed in contrast, in Paterson, New Jersey, where we have our Underground Railroad monument, they have a parking authority, and the parking authority plays a major role in terms of the garages that it operates and the revenue that it raises for the city to put in the city budget. And it has a board of advisors, if you will, or commissioners that oversees it. And so we just have, people with money just going to the bank and nobody raising any questions.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. That's a good question, because if the city owns this property and they're leasing to someone else, are we really getting the bang for the buck, or should we bring it back in and then be able to control that and bring that type of money into the city?
Well, let's look back at something historically. Down at 101 Ash Street, across from that place is a parking lot. You and I remember 25 years ago, Gella Rosa had a restaurant there.
Yeah.
And it was doing great business. She brought the Texas flavor and everything there. Eddie Edwards had these beautiful murals in the place, and it was a downtown eatery. Gala Rosa was forced to close. The building was torn down. The parking, it became a parking lot, which it still is, I think, to this day. And Ace is controlling it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so why did we put a business out of business to create a parking lot that gave money to the person that's already controlling all the parking, and this business goes away, you see? But we don't pay a close enough attention. Remember that San Diego had before the state stepped in and put a limit on it, we had the downtown development, the Center City Development Corporation, and just to keep the natives happy, what did they do? They went out to Southeast and created the Southeast Economic Development Corporation, which is to make sure that all of the construction and building that you're doing is going to be separate from what we're doing, because we don't need you to get involved in the big money ticket items downtown. We saw Horton Plaza get all kinds of tax breaks when they built that shopping center, which is long gone. and all the tax breaks and the jobs never materialized like they were supposed to. And here we are again with a downtown partnership. Uh, and so the citizens of the city don't really pay enough attention to the money elements that are in the city.
Yeah, and they have been building on Horton Plaza for what, 5 years now, and I still seem like they're at ground zero.
Well, it's not, but it's taking so long, Dr. Thompson, because it's my understanding when they finish, it's going to be like a miniature Silicon Valley. It's going to be all tech. And everything coming in down there that's why all of the big high-rise buildings, that's why the ownership and the rents are high, because this is going to be a miniature Silicon Valley with all of these people, and only the wealthy will be able to live downtown, and that's the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can catch the trolley to the library if we want to,
Yeah.
or the ballpark, but other than that, no, they don't want us down there.
Well, Doc, quiet as it's kept, word's on the street that you already have a couple of places down there, and you're going to be renting them out to make the money.
Yeah, that's real funny. That is really funny. And my attitude about downtown is, I wouldn't live down there if someone gave me properties down there, because I like space and I like being out. I like being able to look at the mountains in the morning and look east for while there's still something to look at before they finish building all over that. So.
Yes. And I'd like to end off the night to say happy belated birthday to you. You made it another time around the sun, and we thank God for you. Any final words from our senior person in the room tonight?
Well, I'm reminded there's some guys around here, Pastor Amos, Bob Countryman, the brothers over at San Diego, the YMCA board. These guys are like, they treat me like the baby of the group when I get with them. Bishop Dixon, they're all in their upper 80s and 90s, and still going strong. So I'm glad to be here. And I enjoy, I think every day is special. And I'm thankful for every day because there's so many people that we are losing in this community. I have friends who are incapacitated. They have all the money and the wealth and everything, but they're sick and they don't have the use of their body and they're paralyzed. And so when you stop and think about these things, then you'll stop fussing and fighting and really look at what's important.
Yeah.
Because nothing is promised to us. And so we got to give God the glory for every day.
Well, with that being said, this is From the Desk to the Elder with Dr. John Warren. We hope to see you next week, and stay tuned. Continue to listen and make sure you get your voice and viewpoint, and we will see you next week. Y'all be blessed.